record.
Yeah, I think you're recording. It says recording.
Yes, that's it. I needed to come back in. Let me start the video. Yes, I needed to use my Zoom room to come in. Okay, good. Well, welcome to you, ladies. This course is Mentoring Women in the Professions, Emerging Theories. I think we should start. I'm going to ask Kavita if she could lead us in prayer.
Sure thing, yeah.
And then we do our introductions. Thank you.
Lord, we thank you for this time where we're going to get to know each other and what we are about to do in this course. And Lord, I'm looking forward to it, Lord, with a lot of course, passion and expectation. As we do this, I pray, Father, that you will change us, you will mold us. Bless this time of fellowship. And Lord, we're here to build your kingdom and use us to build your kingdom. We ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Kavita.
Amen.
Welcome again. Let's introduce ourselves, and I guess in fairness to you, I probably should start. Okay, I am Dr. Claire Henry. I am resident in New York City, and I've been working with Baki from last year, March, as it were. It's interesting that I started out as part of a team to develop the program, the Women's Studies program, with a focus on women in leadership. And as a result of that engagement, I was asked to develop this course, Mentoring Women in the Professions. And there's a second course in the women's program that I also developed. So this was the first course that I taught at Baki. I just finished teaching a course on servant leadership, and I will be co-teaching the bridge course on research with Dr. Bill Payne.
Okay.
My background is education. And that for me is very interesting. And I happen to see education as my mission in life. And I have to say that it's one of the reasons, in fact, the foundational reason why I've become so involved in education has to do with the influence of Christian teachers, especially in high school and at university. They were excellent role models to me of people of scholarship and faith, how they brought those two together. And in high school, they encourage us as Christians to be people of excellence. And that has stayed with me throughout my entire life as a Christian and as an academic professional. They call that, they explained that is biblical, that as Christians we are called to be people of excellence. So as I said, my foundation is in education. I've been a high school English teacher. I've taught Bible, we called it scripture, in high school setting. And then my first degree is in English with a focus on linguistics. And I've done training, education training, and in my home country of Guyana, it was a postgraduate degree, diploma in education with a specialization for teaching English in high school. My master's degree is in educational ministries, and I did that at Wheaton College Graduate School in Illinois. And then my doctoral work is in adult and continuing education administration, which I did at Michigan State University. To summarize in a nutshell, as I said, most of my professional life has been in the field of education, whether it has been teaching in the classroom or the educational ministry of the local church and of the student ministry. My passion is, and it's interesting because it was there all the time, and then until I started to read the literature, I realized how much of it was there. But because of what I said earlier, the impact of Christian teachers, my underlying passion has really been in mentoring. And much of my ministry and life has been defined by mentoring relationships that I've had with my students. And much of that originated, as we'll see as we look at mentoring, in an informal setting. And then eventually students would ask me formally to be their mentor. And this is separate and apart from the mentoring that goes on when you have to work with a student in terms of doing their research, because that process is both teaching and mentoring. But separate and aside from that, students have asked me to be their mentors. There are students who are in doctoral programs at other schools, and I have and am mentoring them in their professional life. And I enjoy doing that, and I'm glad that God has given me the opportunity to impact a generation after me. And my unspoken desire has been to be like those Christian teachers who influenced me. And so I see mentoring as giving me that opportunity to be that influence. And I'm really grateful to God for that. Okay, so I'll stop there and I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions because that is pretty brief. I've done a lot of things in my life. I have been a secondary school teacher. I have worked, in fact, I have pioneered the work of student ministry in my home country, the InterVarsity, Inter-School Christian Fellowship. I've taught at Bible College. I've been principal, academic dean, student dean, and many other things that are foundational to higher education. So that, in brief, is who I am.
So you say you're from Ghana?
Guyana, South America.
Okay,
Guyana.
And so how long have you been in the States?
Oh, I've left Guyana since 1981. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kavita, go ahead. My battery's about to die. Let me get my.
Okay, go ahead, Kavita. Kavita? You can go ahead until she comes back, if you have any questions.
No, I just really love listening to what you've done and accomplished, especially in terms, which I come from a family of teachers. So I also do a lot of training and teaching. So I'm really interested in what, the path you've taken. I read your description in the course outline and I was like, oh, wow. So really happy to meet you, and I really look forward to learning from you about your observations on how the challenges. How did you tackle the challenges that you faced in mentoring women in and around you? So
good. I look forward to sharing that with you. Okay, Tara, you could go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Yeah, I like her. It's very challenging mentoring women. And so I'm very interested in hearing about some of your experiences and how you overcame them, because even in our quest to mentor others, there has to be some reciprocal relationship there, and drawing lines and setting boundaries and knowing when it's time to release that person is very important. Otherwise, people get codependent and they begin to suck life out of you. And so I'm really interested in learning about that part.
Okay. And just to say that I mentor not only women, but women and men.
Okay.
Men in leadership who've asked me to be their mentors. Yes.
Awesome.
And I teach, among other things that I do. I've taught for years our young adults Sunday school class, and those are people between the ages of 18 and 26. So most of them are in college
Okay.
or are just going into their respective professional field. And it has been a blessing to me to have them share with me their college experience, and having been a college teacher myself, to help them to navigate college. And one of the challenges I see about higher education is that we have to help young Christians have that experience without losing their faith in God. I think
Yes.
I come from a family that emphasized education. So that, that has been, I've lived and breathed that. But education should not come at the expense of faith. And the irony of it is that God, our creator, has created everything, including our ability to reason, think, learn, etc. So how ironic it would be for us to define ourselves as educated people and to reject the creator, the source of the wisdom, knowledge, etc. that we assume to have. That is quite ironic and sad. So that is why I've had the passion to be involved in student ministry.
Great.
And that is so crucial, because I remember in my undergrad taking philosophy, and my instructor, I think she was angry. Her dad had been a pastor, and I think she was angry with God. And she spent a whole time focused on, basically, how do we explain God? There is no God. Is there a God? She had so much in that area. And of course, young people, I was an adult at that time, but the younger people in there who had not found that place in their life, they were jumping on the bandwagon, and I'm like, whoa, back the train up here. So it is vital, and I so appreciate that is something that you are passionate about, because that's where young people lose it when they go off to college. They're on their own. They're thinking thoughts that they never thought. They have professors who are influencing them, and they're away from their families. So if the parent is not constantly infusing them, and they're met with all of these different ideologies, they tend to forget or set aside what they have been taught. So I know when my son went off to college, I was on it constantly, because I didn't want him sight.
Sure. And it doesn't have to be that way. Yes.
Sorry, it doesn't have to be?
Say that.
I missed your last line. You said it doesn't have to be.
I was saying in response to Tara, it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that we have to fear that our young people will lose faith because of expanding their educational experience. That does not have to be. I know that does not have to be. Okay, Tara, could you go ahead and tell us about who you are, what you do?
Okay. Who I am. Well, I'm Tara Bates. Bates is new because I got married in March. And
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Moved from Oklahoma to Texas, so I'm new to Dallas, the Dallas area, not a place I ever wanted to live. But Dallas has its own energy, and I love the creativity of the place. So that's been really wonderful. My background, I had a career in broadcasting, radio and television. I did the news and talk shows and what have you. And so that was for
I think we can hear it. We can hear it in you. Yeah.
And I loved it, absolutely loved it. I had 3 children. My oldest daughter had sickle cell. I lost her when she was 27. And just kind of, that was in 2002, and everything kind of came to a halt because, you spend all those years taking care of someone. And my son graduated from college in 2002, and he said, Mama, it's your turn now. So it was time for me to go back and finish. But I didn't do that for another couple of years, so finally did. fell in love with education, the educational process. I thought, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So I became a professional student for a while. Finished my master's at Mid-America Christian University in leadership, and thought, wow, I'm going to go on for my doctorate. Began my doctorate at United Theological Seminary. And then probably about the second year, I hit the wall. Bam! I was like, oh my gosh, I can't write. I can't do anything. I just had to stop. However, I did continue taking classes because I needed some classes. So I did continue taking classes at Campbellsville University, and was at the point of saying, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. And they sent me an email and said, you only need one more class and you're finished. I didn't even realize that I had taken a whole nother master's. Yeah. So I have a master's in theology. I have taught English, high school English for the last 5 years, yes. And this year I said no, because, it's so stressful. You've got all the testing and all of that. And I just said no. So this year I'm teaching audiovisual technology and communications at a middle school to 8th graders. Constant prayer. Ooh, prayer, help me. But it's really wonderful because it puts both of the things that I enjoy together, teaching and broadcasting and all of those things together. I have in ministry, called to ministry, and specifically to women. And I beg God, please, anything, children, anything but women. I just was not wanting, I didn't want to do it. I just found that women were very petty and very competitive. And I thought, Lord, no, please, not women. And no, of course, he didn't change his mind. So I had to get on board. But he honestly made it a passion. And I eat and sleep. I'm constantly wondering, how do we help women to become who they are supposed to be in Christ, not this pseudo, superwoman person, but a loving Christian woman, and all. And with all of our issues and all of the things that make us who we are as women, and the thing that I always stress is that, we are women and we have the same hopes for our families. We have the same desires for our marriages. We want to live in a safe place. We want to be able to be safe ourselves, and we want friendships of other women, but we often run into each other and we don't know how to get past that a lot of times. And so I have been blessed to facilitate conferences from Oklahoma to Alabama, and in between, I have ministered at churches, from Southwest into the South. For some reason, never go west. I've pastored 2 churches, so I've been real blessed. I had 7 grandchildren. The youngest passed away, so I have 6 grandchildren. 1 step grandson who is in there real good. He's found his place. The 2 children that I have, my son who lives here in Dallas area, my daughter who lives in Oklahoma. So I'm on the road back and forth, and all. Come from a large family, have traveled because my dad was military, and have had the privilege of meeting people from all over. That is one thing. I know a lot of people say they don't like the military life. I am grateful for the military life. It allowed me to be more expansive, connect to people. My husband refuses to go to Walmart with me if he can help it, because he says, you talk to everybody. But I just love people. I love to learn about people. I want to know, how do they think? What makes you who you are? One of my lifelong hopes is to be able to minister in Africa, to be able to visit Israel. Those are just tops on my list. I'm involved in a project for the season for women in Africa, and so that is just really something that's near and dear to my heart. I hope to create a model for breaking down walls of division and creating unity between women in the church, because if there's going to be a problem, it's going to come out of the women in the church. the woman who's been there forever, and somebody comes in and looks like they're going to take her place, or instead of her mentoring that person, she, collides with them. The first lady who either is controlling that out of fear, or she's lost somewhere in the crowd, sometimes not respected, or sometimes somebody's after what she has. But when women begin to realize that we all want the same things, and we're supposed to help each other, we're supposed to act as sisters, not adversaries. And so to help women to identify those things, those fears that say to me, ooh, well, when I say, well, I wonder who she thinks she is, there's a fear coming out of me that somehow she's going to overshadow me. She's going to steal something from my life. And I need to be able to identify those things so that I can deal with them and overcome them. My lights they'll come back on. So that I can identify and overcome them, and then turn around and teach somebody else. Jesus told Peter that Satan wanted to sift him as wheat. He said, but I have prayed for you. And then another time he said, I want you to strengthen your brothers. But see, that has to be with us. We have to strengthen each other, because only a woman understands what another woman is going through. We understand those hopes, those disappointments, those fears. And so therefore we need to be there for the healing process.
Thank you very much, Tara. I appreciate that. This is going to be a lively class.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
About yourself.
So just I'll probably keep it very brief. It's interesting to kind of listen to both of you and to listen to your journey. And incidentally, I have also an MPhil, like a pre-doctoral degree in English literature. So my my parents, as I said, we come from a family of teachers. In fact, my parents have pioneered a school themselves. So we've been in the field of education for since I was born, I guess. So so my mom really wanted me to become a college professor, but I decided to rebel and said I'm not going to become a professor. But yes, I love doing what I was doing in college. But somehow over the years, one thing that God kept impressing in my heart is that there needs to be like a strong voice for women in my nation. And somehow, from a very young age, I believed that God was going to do something, use me to do something. Not that others aren't doing anything, but I felt a specific call to be the voice, be like a change agent who challenges, traditions and cultures that limit who women can be. And I don't know if you're aware that the United Nations has recently declared India to be the most unsafe place for the girl child. And so we face a ton of different issues when it comes to women's welfare and safety. And sometimes it is so much apart. I know this is a universal problem, but it has such very unique manifestations in my nation, because it's so much a part of our culture, and people do not even see some of the injustices as injustice. And so I grew up in an environment. We lived in a very small town while I was growing up, and I grew up seeing some of these injustices like domestic violence, unfair treatment of women, education being denied to women, and no respect or safety for women, and so on. And so it just grew with me. And so, I think about 20 years back, I launched, when I didn't know much about how to run a nonprofit. Few of us in our church, we got together and launched a nonprofit called Women of Worth. So we called it Women of Worth because that's one of the things we found lacking in women. Like Tara was just sharing, because of our insecurity, we try to pull other women down as well. So we thought our mission as an organization has to be to train women to think differently about themselves. And so that became our motto, to help women be the best that they can be, in spite of what the church tradition is telling, or in spite of what the culture made. We want to tell women that they are made in the image of God. They have dignity, value, and worth. And so that's what WOW stands for. And so it's been a journey where I've grown myself as an individual being and leading this nonprofit. It's more of a network, a movement where we reach out to women through our advocacy campaigns. We do training workshops. I go and deliver lectures on women and leadership, or how to handle unconscious bias, how to overcome those barriers that try to limit you, so on and so forth. And so our main ideas are to work in the area of women's safety and women's welfare. So that's what WOW is about. And very interestingly, my husband and I also planted a group of churches called the Powerhouse Church. If you know anything about the church in India, the church in India is very legalistic, very traditional. And so the church that God wanted us to start was a church that would be non-traditional, a church where people can go to and be themselves. They can be real without having to wear masks, where women can function to their full capacity, and where scripture would be read, and we would search scriptures for what it really means and how relevant it is to us in our culture. And so that's what our church stands for. So Women of Worth, the NGO that I run, is also very much linked to the church that we're doing. And so we're probably one of the churches in the nation that really allows women to be on the eldership and pastoral team. And we're a very small church, but one of the things we've been motivated to do is to kind of be a resource church in our city, in our nation, so we can impact other churches in the coming generations to think differently about women's role in the church. And one of the things that I have noticed is that when I go into a corporate office, they invite us as Women of Worth to come and deliver a lecture or a workshop. They're so open to what we have to say in terms of women and their leadership development and women being mentored. But the church is so close to it still, and so much behind we are in the church. And that's one of the reasons I want to do something regarding discrimination and the biblical culture, and how we can apply that. What do we take, what do we filter out, and what does God really say about women in the church? I know tons of research has already been done, but I want to focus very specifically on how biblical culture and Indian culture kind of where they meet, and where what needs to be filtered out, and so on. My main point of change came when radical turnaround happened when I went to the London Institute for Contemporary Christianity in London, led by Reverend John Stott. And so there I did my paper on is the gospel good news for women. So that,
good.
Yes.
yeah.
Very good.
So I remember him looking at me. I know he's no more, but he looked at me when he handed the certificate to me, and he said, "The gospel is indeed good news for women." And so, that was kind of a turning point in my life, where I've been through my own journey as well, of where I had those insecurities. That does God really, want me to live up to my full potential? How as a woman, what is my role? Is it something that is prescribed by tradition, or am I called to break those barriers that limit me, and so on? So that's how my journey has been so far. And particularly last year has been a very, very last 2 years have been very, very challenging in my life, because in 2017 I lost both my parents. My mom was very sick, and of course, she was about 74 years old. She had diabetes and developed urinary infection. And then she passed away. And then 1 month later, my dad passed away in a road accident. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So
2007.
sorry.
Yeah, very, very difficult year for me. And that's why I had to discontinue my BG program for a bit. And so I rejoined again. And so one of the things I've been left, behind by my parents is a school that they've initiated, that they pioneered, which is a mission school, a charitable school in a very small little village in India, where aren't many schools. And so that is something that we as a family carry now. And we consider, as you said, Claire, I see education as mission, because in India, we have so many different religions and gods and so on and so forth. But every a person whom I've seen come to the Lord from another religious background has met Jesus or has been introduced to Jesus in school.
Mhm.
So so I see education as mission and schools as a powerful, it's like a powerful place where you can sow seed into the hearts of children so that it will grow and bear fruit in their lives, at a later stage. So basically, that's where I am. I have a non-profit that I lead. I'm involved in church. I preach, teach, and deliver lectures at universities and colleges. And I have this school, and my passion is to really see women released into their God-given destiny. So that's me.
I
Thank
wanted to
you
ask
very
you,
much.
Kavitha.
Thank you.
Kavitha, I wanted to ask you because you have such a bold, out front leadership position. Does
Uh-huh.
that put you in any kind of peril in your country, in your city, or have they just kind of left you alone to do what you do?
Obviously, I face a lot of what you would probably call as character assassination. So my husband is also well known in the city now, so he's a networker. So the general perception, or it's like a very funny, humorous thing to say, so his wife controls his life and that sort of thing. It just goes. The mindset is that she's very bossy and stuff like that. But I just smile and then just move on, which is not a
Yeah.
fact. We give space for each other. That's something we decided as husband and wife. We will kind of encourage each other in our destiny, no matter what that is. And of course, I am a leader. And so if that hurts you, I'm so sorry, but that's who I am.
Good for you. Good for you. I don't know
Wow.
why do we not see you? I don't see you. I'm like,
My connection is very bad. Every time I try to turn it on, I'm not able to hear you guys properly. So by Friday, I think by next class I will have my stuff figured. So we'll see you. I'll see you. You can.
Okay. Well, I am excited to have you two ladies in this class.
I'm excited.
I feel that there's going to be a lot that I am going to be learning from you. And you bring such a passion and such a wealth of experience, both in terms of ministry and mentoring, and of course, your educational background, that this is going to be an enjoyable class for me. What I am going to do now is share my screen so we can look at the course syllabus, which I'm sure you've read. What I'll do, I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there is a PowerPoint presentation that I have that I want to go over with you in terms of introducing you to the course. So if you have any questions on the syllabus, then I'll go to the syllabus. If not, I will go to the PowerPoint presentation. So you tell me, is there any question you have on the syllabus?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not at this point. I do.
Okay, and if you do, you have the I have the office that you could come into and put a question and then I'll respond, or you could do it on the dashboard. Kavitha, do you have any questions from the syllabus?
I'm good so far.
Okay, good. So I'll just share and go into the course itself.
Okay.
So that we can look at the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I'm just going to show you, which I'm sure you're familiar with. The info section. I put everything in there that you need to look at. So you have a number of files. Some of them are articles, etc. For example, I sent you the course outline for this week. It's also in here. So you have those, right? Okay, now I'm going to go to the PowerPoint presentation. So I'll go back to lessons. I call this the introduction to the course.
Okay.
So I'll click on it. And you have given me a very good introduction in terms of your sharing. So the title is Mentoring Women in the Professions, Emerging Theories. And I want to explain the focus on theories. The field of mentoring has burgeoned over the last 25, 30 years. It is such an important field. And one of the things that stands out for me in terms of the field of mentoring is the deliberate focus that the different professions have made and are making to mentor women so that they could rise to positions of leadership within these respective professions. That, I believe, is one of the most important developments on behalf of women in leadership that we see in the professions. And of course, whenever you start to study a movement like mentoring represents, especially mentoring women, you will have to be aware of the foundational theories, the concepts, the theoretical framework that undergird these studies. So I want us to focus on the theories, and especially if it is that you may end up wanting to do your research in the area of mentoring women or women in leadership or women's development, because the foundation piece for any good research is the theoretical framework that undergirds that research. So those are some reasons for the focus on theories. Okay, the setting. Contemporary society has embraced the meaning and practice of mentoring, as seen in the many, many books, articles, research reports, stories, videos, etc. Now, this PowerPoint is in the system, so you can go in and print it out yourself, etc. Okay. Mentoring is a meaning-focused interpersonal relationship which focuses on benefits to and facilitates the growth of the mentee. And definitely, mentoring means nothing if we don't understand the importance of relationship, interpersonal relationships. Mentoring is a relational activity. Indeed, there seems to be as many ways to mentor as there are persons and groups desirous of using this social skill. And I would say at this point, not only is mentoring acknowledged as a social skill, but it is certainly seen as a professional skill, and in some cases a professional requirement. There are two streams of mentoring relationships. There is what is called the formalized mentoring relationships, and these are typically developed by an organization for the purpose of advancing the mentee's standing within that organization, or it's typically a short-term structured process. So you have the formalized, structured mentoring relationship. And then you have, and I think many of us, all three of us have experienced this, the informal mentoring relationship that are typically based in friendships, longer term, and initiated by either the mentor or the mentee for the purpose of benefiting the mentee in some manner. Now, an example of the formalized mentoring relationship, which you would have had or you will have in the school setting, is your dissertation advisor. That is an example of formal mentoring, very specific, very focused in terms of getting you through the successful completion of your research project. Types of relationships in the formal setting. I'm sure you've had spiritual mentoring. Either you have been a spiritual mentor or you have been spiritually mentored. And at this point of our lives, I would say we would have had both experiences, being spiritually mentored and then mentoring others spiritually. Discipleship.
Excuse me, I have 5 minutes and this room is going to be full of 8th graders.
Okay. So you will have to leave us.
Yes.
Now, not to worry, what will happen is that we are recording this and I'm going to have it put into the course. So you would be able to go in and follow. And if you have any questions or comments as a result of the Zoom room meeting, you could certainly put it out in the dashboard. Okay, so when you have to leave, thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to our journey together in the course.
Me too. Me too. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well.
Good. So we've talked about spiritual mentoring and discipleship. Then there's graduate student mentoring, and I've just given you an example in terms of your working with your dissertation advisor. Then there's mentoring to support employability of students in higher education. And there is a stream of literature that reports the studies done on the success and the outcomes of mentoring students so that they could be gainfully employed. Then there's, of course, mentoring as a means of social support. And then there's mentoring to facilitate professional development. So mentoring is really a wide-ranging experience out there. Resources that list mentoring relationship. If you go online, you're going to see there are just many, many resources for mentoring. I just identified 2 or 3 of these that you could just click on the links and see for yourself. Okay. Professional settings in which women are being mentored. Now, mentoring in general has become very popular, but even more so is the interest in mentoring women, especially mentoring women for professional development. So you have theological training in seminary and graduate school, in academia, both undergraduate and graduate experiences, women entrepreneurs, community development settings, STEM programs, information technology, boardrooms, women's sciences, management in corporate America. Those are some of the major settings and areas that have shown interest and demonstrated interest in mentoring women. The meaning of mentoring. The increased interest in mentoring women in the professions attests to the growing social awareness and concern that women be given the opportunity to attain to leadership positions in faith-based organizations, education, business, and industry. Conscious of the breadth and depth of the literature on mentoring women in the professions, in this course we will focus. There is so much literature out there that we are just focusing in on a small piece of what is there, but I would say a small representative sampling. The course objectives. By the end of the course, you will know the different contexts in which women are mentored and the theories that explain the success of mentoring women in the professions. You will examine the best practices and use this knowledge to develop a mentoring program. You will demonstrate awareness of results of individual and group mentoring in different settings and apply this knowledge to the mentoring program that you will develop. You will understand how mentoring facilitates positive health in women and girls. There are many benefits to mentoring, but the one that I thought that I needed to have us focusing especially on, of course, there's education, is the role of mentoring to help women to take control of their health issues and to live better lives. That one is big, and there is just a lot out there in that area. Okay, so that covers this part. Now there's a second presentation that I have. Bye.
That's my bell.
Bye. Take
Bye.
care.
See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So you could just click out.
See it.
Yes. The
All right.
second presentation I'm looking for.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. This one I'd like you to read. When you have it on it. What is theory?
Yeah.
But that's not the second one. Let me find the second one. It's the introduction to the course. Let me see. Theorizing women and leadership. Do you see that, Kavita?
Yeah. Yes,
Good,
I can.
I'm clicking on that. Okay. And this comes from, this is a summary of the first 2 or 3 chapters of this book. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Yes, this is the book, right. Theorizing Women and Leadership. The primary considerations. There are new theories generated by women for women, and these are needed for 2 reasons. Theory has been recognized as a gendered activity. When we look at the history of research and research interests, they tend to reflect male interests. Not surprisingly, the experiences of women as leaders are needed in the theorizing process. Theories use language that forms and perpetuates social norms and expectations, as well as in and out group beliefs. So for those reasons, it is important, and this is one of the concepts in this text, Women and Leadership, Research, Theory, and Practice, to focus on women's studies, women's writings, etc. The standards for evaluating theory and theoretical contributions do not apply to all forms of knowledge, theory, or theorizing practices. These standards apply to the beliefs undergirding critique, radical interpretation, post-colonial feminism, critical race theory, queer theory, and other foundations for women and leadership theorizing. About theory. There are several definitions of theory. One of them is, theory is a statement of concepts and their interrelationships that shows how and or why a phenomenon occurs. Theories are self-fulfilling prophecies. They generate social norms, but not all theories impact practice. It suggests that there are 3 mutually reinforcing mechanisms that work together to enable theories to create reality. And these 3 are institutional design, societal norms, and language. Theorizing is inherent in social change. And that is why in our earlier discussion, Kavita, when you talked about, I asked you about your research interests. I mentioned to you the importance of getting to the theory with respect to discrimination. What are the underlying theories in that area?
Okay.
Connections to women and leadership theory. By developing new leadership theories for women, theorists can influence understanding social norms and expectations and institutional designs favoring gender equality. Theorists can intentionally use theory to reshape the definitions of leadership, the expectations about leaders, and the structures and practices in organizations, communities, and other social structures. Through their work, theorists are in reality acting as change agents for social justice in general and gender equality specifically. And that's where your research is going.
Yeah.
Yes. Approaches to theory building. There's the functionalist research. In fact, functionalist research has dominated leadership research and theory building. And there are 6 types of leadership approaches or theoretical families of leadership theory: transformational, charismatic, strategic, participative, shared, diversity, and tree. These are the 6 types of leadership approaches that are generally covered in theories about leadership, and in leadership, etc. There are, however, non-functionalist ways of knowing that exist, and they are important and need to be valued in the social science efforts. Alternative ways of knowing. Then there's what is known as women's ways of knowing, intuiting and imagining, knowing that is generated by empathy, or what is called the sixth sense, relationships, beliefs, physical movement, religion, and feelings. All of these are alternative ways of knowing that help us to define and understand women's issues and women in leadership.
Yes.
Women's ways of knowing, it's not linear. What I would say, however, is that much of what we have experienced in formal education tends to focus on the linear. And that may be one of the reasons why some people are not successful in our formal education and setting, because knowing is not always and not only linear. The personal experiences of the theorists matters in the theorizing process. Now, earlier when we talked about your proposed research, I talked to you about objectivity.
Yes,
now, that will be countered by the observation that both subjective and objective reality are valid. And that is certainly, I'm aware of that, even though I did say to you that you need to be able to step back and be objective.
I guess both matter.
Both matter, right.
Yes,
continuing to look at women's ways of knowing, applied to social change and praxis, is the synthesis of theory and practice and the reciprocal relationship between them. Praxis is the keystone for accomplishing social change. One of the definitions of praxis is that it is the synthesis of what we call reflection, action, reflection. That basically meaningful change starts out with our being able to reflect on current practice, etc. And as a result of that reflection, it impacts our action, what we do. But then the success of that action requires that we continue the process by further reflection on the action that has been engendered coming out of our original reflection. So it's circular. Both scholars and practitioners will need to critically reflect on how they evaluate research, scholarship, and theoretical contributions. Like all theories, women-centered leadership theory should be connected to evidence and crafted with rigor. And research is about finding the evidence and reporting on it. Okay. Social change and praxis. These are interrelated concepts. Social change will not happen without praxis. Definition. Social change requires collaboration and relationship building in a community context and seeks to address root causes of issues and problems through sustained efforts. Praxis is the synthesis of theory and practice and the reciprocal relationship between them. Chapter 3, Collaborative Theory Building on Women's Leadership. This chapter discusses a collaborative process designed to stimulate theory building about women's leadership that we propose as a model for responsible leadership practice. The model emerges from experience and practice in higher education context, and it allows for inclusive processes to attend to competing and diverse stakeholder claims. We examined how women's leadership theory building design, based on the principles of inclusivity and inquiry, offers potential for a model of leadership practice that is more distributive and less hierarchical. I think you're going to find this relevant to what you're proposing.
Yes.
The theoretical context, responsible leadership theory. Leaders must acknowledge and manage the moral complexity resulting from multiple relationships with relevant stakeholders. Responsible leadership is dynamic and requires proactive engagement with and consideration of stakeholders. Collaborative theory building is a focus on leadership as a process, eliminating its dynamic and shifting nature. And then there's the concept of what is called second generation gender bias.
Yeah, I teach on it. I'm aware of that.
Okay, this is your area. The powerful yet often invisible barriers to women's advancement that arise from cultural beliefs about gender, as well as workplace structures, practices, and patterns of interaction that inadvertently favor men. Good. Reflections on the collaborative exercise. Groups called collaboratories are a network of organization formed that also included social processes, collaboration techniques, formal and informal communication, and agreement on norms, principles, values, and rules. And then, of course, there's the need to develop a climate of trust. Leaders are given clear instructions that there was no specific outcome or desired agenda. The theories relevant to women in leadership are, among them are role congruity, social capital, social identity, and representative bureaucracy. Role congruity is that a group will be positively evaluated when its characteristics are recognized as aligning with the group's typical social roles. That is role congruity.
Okay.
Social capital refers to the network of relationships among people who work in a particular society. And representative bureaucracy captures most or all of the aspects of society's population in the governing body of the state. And these are some theories that are relevant to women in leadership. Identifying responsible leadership processes. The process includes scoping, dialogue as ethical practice, affective and cognitive balancing, and building social capital. Scoping is described as the process of sharing ideas and knowledge without evaluation of judgment. It enables a shared sense of power. Dialogue is seen as an ethical process. It is about active involvement with others, needing suspension of assumptions. Excuse me.
Okay.
Cognitive and affective balancing looks at balancing of multiple and conflicting values. Knowledge has both a cognitive and affective component.
That's right. Okay.
And unfortunately, when people think of women's issues, they seem to think that because of the importance of the affective, that women's issues and concerns may be invalid because they don't think that there's sufficient attention to the cognitive, which is just not true. Building social capital. Social capital is about shared values, trust, and relationship. The emphasis on theory building that is we need to have an emphasis on theory building that is inclusive rather than just theory building that seeks to unify. Because when we start to look at women's issues and developing theory, we are going to, as you tried to share with me earlier on, looking at discrimination will raise issues that may lead to disunity. However, the issue is not disunity. The issue is the key focus has to be on discrimination and how it impacts women. In your situation, you're going to look at it in the context of the church. Okay.
That's what I'm hoping. Let's see.
Yes, you'll see. Okay, so that is a summary of, I think it's the first 2 or 3 chapters of that text. Just key ideas.
Okay, great.
Okay. As you look over it, you may have questions. Feel free to just put it in the dashboard so that Cara would be able to get the benefit of my response.
Okay. Great.
Good. It's been good meeting you, and we will continue to be in touch online.
Yes, absolutely. I had one question. I don't know if you've read this book called The Confidence Code.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, I'll send you the link. Basically, there's this research by these neuroscientists that talk about how women do suffer from lack of confidence, per se. It's a very, it is either inherent. They still haven't concluded whether it's an inherent part of a woman's capacity, cognitive capacity, that there is less confidence, or it is because of, years of social conditioning that kind of takes that sort of a less confidence stance in women. So I was just wondering whether you read that book. Because, one of the things that women do struggle with is confidence, even when it comes to leadership. So I was just
that is true. That is true. And I would want to think that culture plays an important role in that struggle.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Good. Well, I look forward to getting the link and looking at that. Okay. Good. You have a good week.
You too. Thank you so much for your time, and I really look forward to this.
Okay. Blessings on you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.